Welcome, everyone, to Couch Potato Theater here on the Fandom Podcast Network. On Couch Potato Theater, we celebrate our favorite movies. My name is Kevin. I'm going to be your host, and we have got a wonderful surprise for you today. We are talking about American Ninja. Oh, and I'm not done yet. American Ninja 2 as well. The reason we are doing that is because we are celebrating canon films. We're a big fan of canon films and what they provided for us during the 1980s. And this is 1980s canon films retrospective. And we have chosen several films that we're going to be discussing throughout the year that we're going to highlight as canon films. Canon, of course, had a little something to do with these American Ninja films, and I'm excited about that. And we're going to have a fun discussion on this here on the Fandom Podcast Network. And of course, we'd love to get some support from you guys. We got a QR code up there for the Fandom Podcast Network. It takes us directly to our website. So make sure you give us some love there. We appreciate it. And before we go any further, though, I need to bring in my fellow ninjas. Maybe one of them might be a clone, or might be a Black Star Ninja. We'll find out. But the first thing that I need to do is bring in the queen of movie foo, because not only does she watch these films, she also watches the commentaries. She actually has a clone version of her to be able to do that, and then they get together and do that. I don't know how she does it, but let's go ahead and bring in half of my brain here. Miss Ninja Pants herself, Lacey Adderhold. What's up?
Hello. Not a lot. It's this has been fun going through the nostalgia is.
It's there. We're going to touch on that.
Big. So, the nostalgia is big. Yes,
it is. Now we have this other guy who kind of shares a little bit of my brain too, as well as other things. Yeah, we know him. Let's bring in Kyle Wagner, co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network. Buddy, what's going on?
Kevin, my son, it is time for you to regain your memories and learn the final lesson of ninjutsu. I have with me the weapons of the shuriken, the sai, the nunchuck, and most importantly, the ninja laser.
The ninja laser. Oh, you brought up the ninja laser right at the top. Okay, we'll talk about that later. Well played, sir. Okay, so guys, we are celebrating canon films. Before I go any further, of course, we if you're watching the YouTube video, you saw kind of a picture of what other films that we're going to be doing. If you're listening to this, though, we'll tease that later. But I want to ask you, when you see this logo, what does canon films mean to you, Lacey?
Cobra,
yeah.
The first thing I think, the first time I actually kind of connected it, Cobra. Definitely. Yeah.
I think I'm with you there. Yeah. Yeah, because I didn't really start paying attention to the earlier films because Cobra came out in '86. But it was like a video thing. You would see it come across your videotape. But yeah, Cobra's a good one. Kyle, what does canon logo mean to you?
It means you are streamlining everything insane, crazy, and fun, and you're mainlining it from the 1980s.
Lacey.
So, just FYI, the director of American Ninja 2, his statement is that when you see the canon logo, you're in for 45 minutes of action and 45 minutes of maybe some story.
Yeah.
Sam Firstenberg couldn't have said it better. I love that.
That's paraphrasing Shmuley. Yeah.
We're going to bring him up later because I got some fun stuff about that. So yeah, for me, I remember noticing it on all the videotapes. I remember several years ago, Kyle, I posted all these logos of all of these other movie title or all these other movie groups, and it was a big video thing. Whenever you saw that canon logo, you're like, oh yes, action and boobs. Not always boobs, but you get action for sure, and you get violence, and you knew you was going to be kind of cheesy, right? Lacey?
If you don't get boobs, you actually get comments on women who are scantily clad.
This is true. Yes.
So if they don't show you boobs, they at least talk about the boobs that have potential.
Yes. Kyle.
Or just like in American Ninja 2, you go down to a certain beach and everything just comes off.
There you go. Well, like we said here, we're celebrating 1980s canon film retrospective, and the movies that we're going to be touching on is, of course, American Ninja 1 and 2. And when I brought this up with you guys, I'm like, okay, look, if we're going to do this, American Ninja 1 and 2 mean a lot to me, and they're a great double feature because they're only about an hour and a half each. 3 hours, you get nothing but ninjas in action and Steve James. It's great. So I'm glad you guys were in on this, right?
Yep.
And Lacey, I did want to give you a shout out. We'll go in a little more, but you actually told me, Kino Lorber's got some American Ninja films. And I'm like, I need to upgrade on Blu-ray. So we'll talk about that in a second. But let's go ahead and get into American Ninja 1 and 2 here on Couch Potato Theater, guys. Let's go ahead and get into the movie time because we've got a lot to talk about. The first thing we like to do with our Couch Potato Theater is to give you the IMDb possibly vague and not always spot on plot description. Now, what we're going to be doing, since we're talking about 2 films, we're not going to just talk about 1 and then go all the way through the gambit and then talk about 2. We're going to kind of go back and forth because we also want to kind of compare a little bit too and have a little fun with that. And we're going to do the same here with the IMDb plot description. We're going to give 1 and 2, and then I'll give you some releasing and budget information. So for American Ninja, the first one in 1985, we've got an American soldier, obviously very skilled in martial arts, single-handedly takes on mercenaries in Philippines. I have one big problem with that, guys. Do you know what it is?
It says martial arts instead of ninjutsu?
No. Single-handedly? Excuse me, Steve James was there.
Well, but Kevin, let's just say this too. I think it should be a little, obviously very skilled in martial arts. It should be forbidden martial arts because the Westerners are never supposed to be taught the ways of ninjutsu.
This is true. Lacey, your thoughts on that? What do you think?
I mean, I think that statement is enough to get anyone to watch the movie. And then they can form their own opinion.
Okay. All right. So American Ninja 2, The Confrontation, came out 2 years later in 1987. Says, on a remote Caribbean island, Army Ranger Joe Armstrong investigates the disappearance of several Marines, which leads him to the Lion, a super criminal who has kidnapped a local scientist and mass-produced an army of mutant ninja warriors. Kyle.
I'm just wondering, is this the precursor to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Did these Mutant Ninja Warriors were the precursor for the Turtles? Was it the same ooze?
Is the ooze developed on this Caribbean island and then makes it over to Manhattan? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, you never know.
But I think that one's pretty good. But, So, there you go. So, American Ninja was released, of course, by Canon Films. Release date was August 30th, 1985. A running time of about 95 minutes. An estimated budget of about $1 million. The box office worldwide was $10 million, 500,000. Okay. So, what do you do when you have a really good, movie that makes money off its budget? Well, what you do is you make the sequel for less money. American Ninja 2, The Confrontation, came out in 1987. Canon, of course, releasing it. Was released in May 1st, 1987. Running time, 90 minutes. A budget of $350,000 estimate, not $1 million like the first film. The box office of $4 million. So it made money. It didn't make as much as American Ninja, but on $350,000, I guess you made some cash there. So I'm sure that doesn't include the VHS, rentals and stuff like that. So I'm going to start with you next, Lacey, because we always like to do is how did you watch this movie recently? And where did you originally watch it? Let's start there first.
I think originally they were probably on, I don't know, TBS maybe, channel 46 or channel 13, when I still had to twist the dial to get to the movie. Before cable, before any of the, extra channels and whatnot. I think this was probably something you caught, on rotation in the middle. I don't think I saw it in a theater. I think 85, I would have been 12. Right. And I don't know that ninjas would have been something that I was looking into at 12 years old. I think I probably got it, when I was 15, 16, somewhere in there, probably on just, like I said, on the reruns and stuff, on the TBS or maybe potentially later, maybe on the Fox channels or something like that. Just right. Late night entertainment. And then recently, show your physical media there. I got my Kino Lorbers.
Yeah. Blu-rays. Yep.
These are Blu-rays, and they're actually really well done Blu-rays. Each of them has 2 commentaries. Each of them has a small documentary, about 20-25 minutes. And there are 10 maybe trailers for other canon movies on each one of these. So you can watch all the different trailers for everything that has ninja or warrior or assassin in the title.
Okay, so Kyle, where did you first watch American Ninja 1 and 2?
That would be video store rentals, and also very much in the rotation in the day back on cable on like HBO, late night, Showtime, those kind of things. More recently, I did watch the digital versions on Amazon Prime.
Glad you brought that up because they're all available there. And if you watch one, guess what? It goes right into the next one.
And right into the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Before you know it, you're at American Ninja 5,000.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I'm glad you brought that up, Kyle, because I did want to mention to listeners they're all on Amazon, which is fantastic. So my first American Ninja film was actually American Ninja 2, because I believe, I could be wrong, but I felt like they were more in circulation. It was harder to find the first one, to be honest with you, in my local video store and other video stores. But American Ninja 2 was there. And I rented it and I loved it. I thought it was great. But I didn't catch on to it until I want to say 90, 91, 92. Because I think it might one of the films might have been heavily edited, well, not heavily edited, but edited enough to where even though these are 90-minute films, there is some violence and stuff in it that they still would throw in a bunch of other commercials or whatever. But I saw the second one first, and I'm like, this is really good. I like this, and then I finally found the second one, and then I dubbed them on to a double VHS double feature. I did one of those. And I watched them over and over again. Of course, at the time, I was fascinated with ninjas. We had of course, Ninja Turtles, and I've watched the earlier ninja films. One of my favorites of all time, of course, is the Octagon with Chuck Norris. So yeah, and then throughout time, I've always had them on VHS. And then, of course, when DVDs came out, I got the DVDs. I have one showing right over here, kind of a different American Ninja. This is from I think that's from Canada. If you're looking over here on the video there, that might be Canadian. It's a little bit different font to the American Ninja. And then, of course, I have the American Ninja 5 movie collection, which I think is funny because it shows Michael Dudikoff with some hands that are just kind of superimposed, like he's holding them up like a fist, which I think is kind of funny. And then, of course,
4 of the 5, right? He didn't do 3, but he did 1, 2, 4, and 5. Is that right?
He did 1, 2, 4, and did not do 5.
Oh, so he was in 3 of the 5. Okay.
Yes, yeah. We'll talk about that with the sequels, but yeah, I do have the collection on DVD, and then of course, thanks to Lacey, got me heads up that Kino Lorber released them on Blu-ray, and I love the cover for the first American Ninja. I love the American flag in the back. It just says everything. It's a great cover. One of my favorites there. So yeah, that's how I watch it recently. Even though I have them on Blu-ray, I did watch them on Amazon because it was easier for me to move from room to room and watch it, at work and during my break and stuff like that. But I'm glad you brought it. We're going to be talking about, and I want to give Lacey a heads up here, and also a huge, huge thank you for taking the time to watch all of the commentaries on these, because that information will be coming up. So Lacey, thank you so much again for doing that. Much appreciated.
I just have to say, who does not want to watch 10 hours worth of content on American Ninja 1 and 2?
Right? Yeah.
It's 90 minutes. It's 90 minutes. This is 90 minutes plus 2 commentaries plus a half an hour documentary. So it's a lot of information, but it's really fun. Like, you can tell that the people involved had fun making these movies.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into the main movie discussion here. And what I always like to do, me, I like to kind of pull up a recent article of whatever movie we're talking about, especially if it's an anniversary or if other people are thinking about it as when we are. And guess what, guys? I found a article on 411mania.com posted just last year, 2024. We're recording this in 2025. Posted by Brian Christopowitz. and he calls his article "From the B Movie Vault: American Ninja and American Ninja 2: The Confrontation." So he goes in to say this. He says, American Ninja is yet another great 1980s action flick, a classic from start to finish. I'm glad that I decided to check it out again, as I hadn't seen it in years. The last time I remember watching it was back in the early 1990s on, I believe, WPIX out of New York City some afternoon, Saturday afternoon. I'll definitely have to check out the other 4 movies in the franchise. For some reason, out of all the action movies canon made in 1980s, the American Ninja franchise is one that I missed out on. I plan on changing that in 2012. If you haven't seen, I think you meant 22, maybe I read that wrong. But if you haven't seen American Ninja, do it yourself and check it out as soon as you can. A great action flick. See American Ninja as soon as you can. See it. So, and he goes on to talk about, like, so what do we have here? How many dead bodies and how many explosions? He says several. Nudity, none. Then he goes in American Ninja 2. It's not as good as the first one, but American Ninja 2, The Confrontation, is still worth checking out. It's classic in its own way. There are ninjas in it, and ninjas are always fun. The world would have been a much better place if we had more ninja movies like American Ninja 1 and 2. I want to stop there, guys. Kyle, I want to go to you on this because I thought this was interesting. I lived on ninjas. I was fascinated by ninjas. I bought a How to Be a Ninja book. How to do ninja moves. I made ninja throwing stars. I bought cheap ninja throwing stars on the back of comic book ads. Johnson Smith Company. Remember that thing? Kyle, where were you with ninjas in general during this time when you first saw it?
Okay, so before I answer the ninja question, there is one important thing I need to address here. When we talk about these movies and talk about nudity, none, when we're talking about canon films, there needs to be another category with that. Implied nudity.
Explain, Kyle.
Where our characters appear to be nude, but they're either laying down on the sand of the beach or they're behind a couple of jungle tree prawns or something like that. But their clothes happen to be hanging over there, drying off in the sun or something like that. Canon was famous for this implied nudity.
Okay.
So yeah. I just need to throw that out there real quick because I was just laughing when you were going through those categories. As far as ninjas go, come on. We all either had it ourselves or we had that friend who had that classic martial arts kung fu magazine that we were all going through looking, oh, that weapon's so cool. That weapon's so cool. We'd all talk about, oh, I saw Ninja the Revenge or Ninja 2 or Ninja the Damnation or American Ninja. And we all are trying to figure out how we can get throwing stars. We all
Ninja the Damnation. Oh, that's good. I like that. I want that movie. Hold on. All right, let's get. Hold on 1 second. All right, there you go, Kyle. Go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, we all had these friends, and like I said, we all knew somebody who was either suspended for school from a day or got detention because they showed up in school with one of those half-assed throwing stars.
Right. I think they actually said do not make throwing stars in metal shop, but we all did.
Yeah. So, but no, come on, we all love ninjas. Come on, Storm Shadow G.I. Joe came out. That was huge, and they basically made Snake Eyes a ninja. Ninjas were everywhere, like you said, everywhere. And come on, they're cool. They're wearing black. They got masks. They got all these cool weapons. They make funky sounds when they throw punches. It's great.
Lacey, I got in trouble for cutting up one of our broomsticks and making nunchucks. My mom was not happy about that. Your thoughts? Where were you with ninjas when during this time? Because American Ninja came out in '85. Ninjas were everywhere. We saw the ninja films. Where was your fandom with ninjas at the time?
Okay, so I did not, I guess, formulate or really nurture my love of the ninja oeuvre until a little bit later on. I saw these movies, they were fine, whatever. But then I guess probably in like mid-20s, so probably 10 years later, I was like, these are so much fun. They're so silly, and some of them are ridiculous. And let's not even talk about cultural appropriation because really, guys. But like just kind of looking back, and not because of these specific films, but they reminded me of the ones that, like, these were movies I hadn't seen yet, but they reminded me of all like the Seagal like attempts at, his weird martial arts fetish thing that kind of transformed from one thing to a whole different situation, watching, Jean-Claude Van Damme films. So, because I had a good basis for action films, with Schwarzenegger and Stallone and Van Damme and basically the cast of the Expendables. Right. But, I really hadn't kind of gone into some of the B movies or maybe the C movies or even the D movies of the time. And a lot of these ninja films they're just so much fun, and they're silly sometimes, and they're ridiculous. And there's things that you're like, okay, that's easy. Why are they using a chop cut there? We know that's not real. Like, some of these in camera, stunts and stuff where you're just like, oh, they were trying something, they didn't get it, but it was a good try.
Right.
So I kind of found these about probably 10 years later when I really started like searching out all the fun new ninja movies. But yeah.
Okay, well, it's interesting because I was fascinated by ninjas, and when you watch enough kung fu films, there's always the taboo of like you can't teach the Westerners this art. We learned that in Shogun, and it was a secret from the Far East, and there's no way they would be hired as bad guys too, but no white guy is supposed to learn this stuff. So when you have this good looking Michael Dudikoff, and he's like, he knows it. But I like it too because he's got amnesia. He doesn't know how he knows it because of an explosion. And then you find out in the first film that he was taught the skills, and then he has this accident and he has no memory, but he knows how to kick ass, And so it was just like I was kind of living vicariously through him, which I thought was kind of fun. And it's just how cool is that? American Ninja with the American behind you. It's just it's interesting. So I always a huge fan of ninjas. I always found them fascinating. And Kyle, you're right. Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, one of the biggest reasons, and especially when they went into the history of those characters in ninjas, and ninjas came out later more in G.I. Joe, right, Kyle?
Oh yeah, and come on, let's face it, Kevin. G.I. Joe 21. I mean, the silent issue that threw so many people in it. So G.I. Joe was, I think G.I. Joe for a lot of kids was kind of the induction into ninja.
Yeah.
And then maybe you had a little bit older brother or sibling that was just old enough that they could get away with renting or watching those ninja movies of the 80s. And then you'd sneak in and kind of watch them with them or something along those lines. But yeah, for me, like I said, it was between G.I. Joe. Luckily, I had an older sibling who kind of had a little crush on Michael Dudikoff there. So that's kind of how I was able to sneak in the American Ninja movies. But come on, like I said, I think the other big one were those classic martial arts magazines where you just literally going through and you're just, oh, that weapon looks so cool. What the heck is that? What's this? How do they use this?
Those were everywhere. Yeah. And you always had some ninja guy, some guy dressed up as a ninja, which made it even cooler.
Exactly.
And my first introduction to a ninja that I remember really, I mean, there might have been some subtle stuff in kung fu films and everything, but the one that I remember the most is we went as a family to the local drive-in, and we went to go see Chuck Norris's Octagon. And I knew who Chuck Norris was. My dad loved Chuck Norris, and I was just like, whoa. And then they had like some boobs in it too. I was like, whoa, am I supposed to be seeing that? And what was that? 79, I think, 80, I think it was. But good times though, good times. So, but let's get into some movie reviews for these films, guys. And it's not a big surprise what some of the critics are saying here. So according to Rotten Tomatoes, American Ninja has a 0 on the tomato meter, but at the time I did this, there was only 8 reviews on it, but 47% on the popcorn meter. And so, I guess, and the Metacritic gave the film an average of 20 out of 100. So, and it said generally favorable reviews. American Ninja 2 has no rating on the tomato meter at the time I did this, but 40% on the popcorn meter. So, yeah, so it's interesting how they went about it. But then, we have in a contemporary review, Joanna Steinmertz of Chicago Tribune stated that the film was a shameless steal of the Dr. No 1962 and Star Wars 1977. I'm assuming they're referring to the first one or the second one. Is it the second one, Lacey? You got some info on that? What you got? Hold on, you're on mute there. There you
yes. I don't know, but I have a problem with her statement. And as soon as you finish reading it, I have a
Oh, please. Okay, so let me finish here.
that, yeah.
So she goes on to say, shameless steal of Dr. No in Star Wars, such as when Joe conjures up the Shinyuki for a little moral support, much the way Luke Skywalker communed with Obi-Wan Kenobi. The review praised Sam Firstenberg action scenes, noting that the lavishes are such care on the shooting and the editing of fight scenes. Lethal Weapons, Richard Donner could learn plenty by watching these. Thoughts, Lacey?
Okay, so someone who is saying... She actually said that this film is stealing from Star Wars because there was a mentor. Okay, so there apparently were no Japanese films in the 30s, 40s, 50s that had. I mean, come on, that's ridiculous. Like that's a major film trope. Much like on top of that, it's an Asian film trope that likely George Lucas stole from Asian cinema. So, and then don't get me wrong, homages and theft, it's a very thin line, and it's all about being amazing and trying to, pay homage to all of your favorite films and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, George Lucas spent a lot of time talking about all of the films that he loved when he was, coming up. And those films, some of them were...
Yeah, Kyle, it feels like they're like what Lacey said. It feels like the reviewer didn't really do the homework there. What are your thoughts?
Right?
I think he definitely did not do the homework because if he would have, he would have known. Or she, that both George Lucas and Spielberg were huge fans of Akira Kurosawa films and worshipped those films.
Not to mention Dune, Frank Herbert, and all that kind of stuff. So
but those Kurosawa films especially, they were huge influences not only on both. On Spielberg, but a huge influence on Lucas, and that's where a lot of elements of his films and elements of Star Wars came from.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to, we'll touch on this during the fight scene, guys, because Kyle, you brought up something before we started recording, and I want to make sure you bring that during our fight scene segment. But in his book, Horror and Science Fiction Film 4, Donald C. Willis dismissed the film, noting, quote, lackluster stunt work, lots of shots of bodies falling onto breakaway tables. So what?
Wait, here's the thing: the people who love canon films, they know what they're getting into. Yeah. They embrace that.
Yes,
it's like watching.
We want the cheese, you know.
And you also, it's like watching old Ed Wood movies. Like you're going to see the strings on the spaceships, and that's fine. That's awesome. Like that's part of what makes it what it is.
Yep.
These movies are not good movies, but they're great movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're so much fun.
Yeah.
Let's get into some movie trivia, guys. So what we'll do is we'll take some turns here reading. Who would like to go first? Raise your hand. Lacey, would you like to hit number 1 for us there for American Ninja? We're going to do 5 trivia on Ninja 1 and then 5 on Ninja 2.
Sure. Okay, so number 1 here is, it says, in the trailer, the film was called American Warrior. Michael Dudikoff had no martial arts training before the filming began. He learned quickly during production and ended up earning a black belt.
There you go. Kyle, you want to get number 2 there for us?
Oh, number 2 is always a fun one. Steve James said in an interview that Michael Dudikoff was anxious about working with him since James knew martial arts and Dudikoff didn't, and he didn't want to be shown up. James even requested his final fight scenes be filmed on the other side of the compound, far away from Dudikoff, to avoid any further problems.
Yeah, I could understand the anxiousness with that, but he should have just gone up to him and said, "Dude, bro, teach me some stuff," because we know Steve James knew stuff. So, number 3, originally the studio chose Chuck Norris to star. He chose not to do the film because he didn't want his face hidden on camera. He said, quote, "If I'm going to be in the film, I don't want my face hidden. It's going to be me." What I find funny about this is after rewatching this, Michael Dudikoff doesn't put on the ninja outfit until the very end when he's fighting ninjas. And then he takes it off soon afterwards. So I'm like, Chuck, come on, man. You could have still done this, but whatever.
And And they actually, before they contacted Chuck, they actually put an ad in the Hollywood Reporter and Variety that had a photograph of Chuck Norris and says American Ninja and everything. And then Chuck Norris was like, "What are you talking about?" Absolutely not.
Whoops.
Uh-huh.
Lacey, go ahead and hit us up with trivia number 4 for American.
Alrighty. For this movie, Cannon Films sought an action star who looked like James Dean, didn't talk much, and seemed to have a chip on his shoulder. Sam auditioned 2,000 actors and narrowed it down to 200. While Michael Dudikoff had no martial arts training, he had the look Cannon wanted.
There you go. Yeah. And Kyle, you want to get our last one there?
Yeah. Although the original film was one of Cannon's few hits, the company greatly slashed the budget for the sequel when it hit financial trouble. I think it was all those steel drums they were trying to use.
Wait.
Kyle, I think you jumped ahead there on that one.
Yeah, you went to the second one.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The last one, I'll get it real. The last one for American Ninja this was the first of 3 films with Michael Dudikoff and director Sam Firstenberg. The other 2 were Avenging Force, 1986, and American Ninja 2, The Confrontation in 87. So, Kyle, why don't you go ahead and hit number 1 for American Ninja 2, The Confrontation.
That I can do now that I'm back on track here. In an online documentary for this movie, Michael Dudikoff recalled that when it came time for him and Steve James to jump off the large boulder at the end of the beach fight scene, James quickly whispered to Dudikoff that he didn't know how to swim. Dudikoff then told him that was a serious problem and shouted out to the crew to halt filming. They then brought on James' stunt double to do the jump, but he also admitted he didn't know how to swim either. James then did the jump himself, with Dudikoff promising that when they both hit the water, he would grab James and pull him to the surface. It's so nice that Dudikoff and James looked out for each other so much.
Well, it's one of those things where that one scene right there might have been where Michael Dudikoff didn't have as much of a chip on his shoulder about Steve James knowing the martial arts. That, I mean, everybody's got things they know and things they don't know. Yeah. Everybody's got their own, pros and cons. So,
Lacey, you want to hit number 2 for us for American Ninja 2 trivia?
Sure. The last movie Michael Dudikoff made with Menahem Golan and Yoram Globus, but not the last one he made with Cannon. That was Chain of Command in 1994.
I'll get number 3 here for American Ninja 2. Prior to the film's release in 1987, several cuts had to be made in order to receive its R rating due to excessive close-up of various fight scenes. Kyle, give us number 4, please.
Yep. The plot of the film was built around the filming location of South Africa, initially planned to be about Joe and Jackson opening a martial arts school in an urban setting after completing their army service. This idea was scrapped due to the filmmakers' belief that creating a large American city's look and feel in South Africa would be too difficult. They went on later to use this plot, and I'm just adding this in, but they went on and later to use this kind of plot for Only the Strong.
Yeah, and plus they made South Africa a Caribbean island, which I thought was kind of funny. I'll get the last one here. Although the original film was one of Cannon's few hits, the company greatly slashed the budget for the sequel when it hit financial trouble. So there you go. That is the movie trivia for both 1 and 2. So, guys, let's go ahead. We're going to go ahead and go into our favorite scenes, and we're going to start off with American Ninja here, 1985. And I'm going to just show some slides here too. But Lacey, I know you're fresh off, of course, watching the both of them and doing the audio commentary for American Ninja. Give me some of your favorite scenes and why.
Okay. The bucket scene is fantastic. Apparently that was on the day. Michael Dudikoff was like, hey, what if we do like a blind thing? And I put the bucket on and we just time it out right. A lot of that fight sequence was ad-libbed kind of on the day. Not ad-libbed because you don't really do that with but they kind of came up with it on the day and made some changes to make it more suited to everyone's different fight styles. Which was really cool. Also, the scene where Charlie and Curtis come blazing in, where Steve James is on the mounted gun on the back of the Jeep.
Right.
Pulls up and Charlie says, wait, I wrote it down just to make sure I got it right. Hang on, Curtis, I'm taking this bitch uptown. And that is not the most 80s statement I have ever heard in my life. It was delightful. Charlie stole every scene he was in. He's such a weirdo, and it's perfect. Apparently, he's a comedian in real life. He was always doing, he said during setups, part of the commentary, they talked about how between setups.
He's the one that thinks he knows how to hacky sack, right?
Yeah.
Yes, but he doesn't actually say the word hacky sack. He's like, hey, I know how to do that.
Right.
I'm
I'm from California.
Yeah, he did not know how to do that. I know because I used to play hacky sack.
And then he turns around and he leaves the keys in the trunk as he runs over to start playing. Like, what? Okay. But apparently he got up on tables and would do, stand-up routines between sets to keep everybody, take their mind off the heat.
Oh, that's cool.
And that kind of stuff. And if you remember him, he's he's Dee Pfeiffer's boyfriend from The All-Nighter. Right. So he's got that same he's got that
Susanna Hoffs, right?
Yeah, but he's got that like dusty voice where it's kind of like part saxophonist, part surfer dude or something. I don't even know, but he's one of my favorite characters in every scene he's in. He's only in like 5, but he's so ridiculous. Other than that, I mean, all the fight scenes are fun. Come on, how many ninjas can you put into one fight scene? Let's find out.
We'll get to fighting soon. All right, Kyle, what were some of your favorite scenes in American Ninja?
Lacey hit it as far as the bucket scene goes. I think that's a classic scene. I'm a little softy. I love the setup date night that the colonel's daughter does, the sucker and the little things he suckers in. And I love the scene before that where he's taking Steve James's bike and you're like, he's not going to do what I think he's going to do because he's worried about his bike. I'm also I love that opening scene in the jungle when he's rescuing the colonel's daughter, and she's just won't shut the hell up, and he's just calm, cool, and collect going on.
He knows what to do. He's cutting off the heels of her shoes. He's like making so her dress is tied up.
Her skirt. He rips her skirt, and she's just freaking out, talking about all this stuff, and not even registering that he's helping her survive. And it's like, but that, and I'll be honest with you. Another my favorite fight. One of my favorite scenes in this is when he's being held in the brig and the Black Star Ninja comes to assassinate him.
Yeah. That's a good one. I love the scene. I love the warehouse scene because you see him showing up with the truck and something's afoot, not Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle foot. Like the foot.
I see what you did there.
But
I think I might have to shred that.
Oh, Kyle did not just go there, but he did. Loved him for that. I love that too. And the thing too, I love the opening scene with the truck heist as well, because you see the Black Star Ninja going, he's got skills, and I think that's a really good scene there. And I do like the flashback too we get of the mentor, because I love that the mentor is like secretly eavesdropping on like everything the bad guy's saying to the Black Star Ninja, and then he makes Joe's character remember what happened in their training and stuff. I thought that was a good kind of little storytelling plot to do that as well. Kyle,
I just want to add in something because you talk about that opening scene with the truck heist, and I know we're going to dive into this later, but I just have to say this: slowest ninja arrows ever.
See, that's the thing about these movies, is that you have to slow stuff down. I remember first learning about that when they were filming Lethal Weapon 4 and Jet Li was just too damn fast. And Richard Donner was like, dude, you gotta slow that down, man. We can't catch it on there. So they have to do these silly little tricks, right, Lacey? You got to see the trajectory of these things, right?
Yeah, and the funny thing is that these two films actually created 2 different stunt teams. Because neither of the locations, the first one I believe was filmed in the Philippines, the second was in South Africa. Neither of these places had like official stunt people. They had to kind of bring a few people in and then grab a few guys who are willing to be daring.
Yeah.
And hey, are you willing to get on this motorcycle and jump it over? So, that scene you were talking about, Kyle, where he takes Steve James' motorcycle and goes up the ramp and jumps over the thing. They had 2 different stuntmen who said, yeah, I'll do it. And then they got to the top of the ramp and they were like, nope, not doing it. And so the stunt coordinator had to do it himself. And if you watch the scene from the other side, you see that his face comes down on the gas tank. He ended up getting stitches across the top because this is pre union. This is pre.
Plus, you're in another country where apartheid's happening.
Yeah, where there are zero.
There
are 0 rules and regulations as far as safety measures. Yeah. The scene at the end where he climbs onto the helicopter, they did that 100 feet in the air with no lines. It's just one guy who was like, "Yeah, I'll do that. I think I can do that." And just nothing happened.
Before we move on from the scenes of American Ninja, I just want to mention that I do like the bucket scene as well, because I think Steve James really shines in that. Steve James says, I've been beat. You're okay with me. And then he gets everyone else to like Joe and kind of rally around him. I thought that was a great scene, just to kind of, Joe, who's kind of trying to be by himself, and, people are getting annoyed that he's being the loner. And it can also tell, like, Steve James, like, he's also a very good actor. So that was kind of nice. And I do love the end helicopter scene too. That's also very cool. So, well, let's get into our favorite scenes for American Ninja 2. There's some to choose from here. And so we'll get in. I love the fact that it starts off with the motorcycle guys, and you get that cool, fast and American Ninja music. Lacey, what are some of your favorite scenes for American Ninja 2, The Confrontation?
Okay. So American Ninja 2, if you're watching the video right now, if you're watching on YouTube, it's the top right hand corner photograph, and then just oh goodness. Okay, yeah. So if you watch the scene where they're being attacked on the beach the first time, the absolute, it kind of reminded me of the BMX. What was it? With the BMX ballet,
right?
Oh,
rad.
Yes.
Right?
It was so kind of drawn out and so choreographed that it just felt. And he's wearing like Keds, which makes it just looks a little bit goofy. It's adorable. It's silly. It's ninjas on the beach, which seems a little bit odd. But that's one of my favorites. And then also, once again, the second in command guy, whose name happens to be Charlie, again, he keeps showing up with terms like, "Oh, you came to dance and it's time to boogie." It's like, yes, I loved him. He was ridiculous and silly.
That was Wild Bill. He was the guy in charge, Wild Bill. Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm talking about like the friend that kind of went with them at the end.
Oh, yeah. The one where they go, his car gets stripped. His car gets stripped.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. I love Wild Bill in this one. Okay. Kyle, what are some of your favorite scenes?
I'm a big fan of that beach scene. I think it's interesting and it's hilarious in its own right when you see these ninjas just kind of marching out of the beach out of nowhere.
It's weird because you're not used to seeing ninjas on beaches,
Like, no, ninjas in the dark, not in the white, bright sand.
But it was kind of scary when I first saw it. I remember that. I'm like, oh shit, ninjas in beaches. Wow. I live by a beach. No.
I love the opening scene when they get picked up at the airport. It's just so.
It's like, no, we're Army. We're not Marines,
And then one of my favorites too is when Wild Bill said, "I'm going to dress you up as Marines just to keep things."
Keep the peace.
And they're both like, just have this horrified look on their face. And finally, when you have like a ninja demonstration scene, anytime you have the big drums pounding while ninja martial arts are being done, it's always classic.
Lacey, do you have a comment?
Yeah, can I just say something about the whole having an army personnel dress as Marines? There's a level of stolen valor there.
Yeah.
Which is why never in a million years would a military officer from any branch, put on another military branch's uniform and pose. Like, that's the one place where I was like, nope, you lost me. That's just not cool.
So I love the beach scene. It's so cheesy. The fights are so bad, but I love the beach scene for a few reasons. First of all, ninjas on beaches, I'm in, right? But I also like the fact that the ninjas do the cool thing where they climb on top of each other to get up the rock. I thought that was really, really cool. And I still do. But also, too, I love that Steve James is fighting one. He's shirtless and got, the small little red shorts, He fights one of the ninjas, right? And then he goes, after he kicks him or something and he gets back into position, and then Steve James goes, come on, like he's like, come get me, come at me, bro. I love that. Kyle.
Also in that scene, especially in the Steve James scenes, it's like, you really didn't kill him or knock him out here, and yet he's on to the next. The next guy, like he's forgotten about the guy he just threw over his shoulder or something. He's like, oh, I'm done with him. I'm on to the next guy. Yeah, here he goes coming behind him with the ninja blade.
Lacey.
And also that the scene where they're climbing on each other to get to the top,
Yeah.
they didn't know what they were doing, and like 4 of them kept falling off of each other, and it took a very long time for it to film.
Oh,
Like,
that's what the commentary said.
Yeah, they just didn't know what they were doing because they were, like I said, they had a couple of guys from LA that they flew in, and everybody else was like, "Hey, you look strong. Do you want to try and climb this mountain with us?" Like, it was like, we're gonna put you in some hot clothes and make you stand in the hot sun.
So the other scene that I like too, just because this is where you start to realize, okay, because there's that speech at the end when they're talking about the super clone, basically super soldiers that are ninjas, right? And then they don't feel pain and all that kind of stuff. That ninja that gets like pulled behind the truck scene, that dude gets beat the F up, man. I mean, I was just like, damn. And then you find out later, and then I love the demonstration and the little arena because it's very menacing. And then you see those guys that are like, soon test subjects and they're all like kind of like sleeping in hibernation. And I'm trying to see if one of them are going to move, that type of, I love the little details like that. So yeah. All right, let's get into the cast and crew discussion of American Ninja 1 and 2. All right, we can't go any further. And Lacey, thank you for reminding me to do this because this is kind of important if we're talking about Canon Films. And we have a picture up here of the leaders of Canon. And I'm going to let Lacey properly pronounce these names.
Okay. So it's Menahem, Golan, and Yoram, Globus.
So if you're looking at the picture here, Menahem Golan is left, and then we have Yoram Globus to the right. A little bit on Yoram here. Yoram Globus was born September 7th, 1943. Is an Israel-American film producer, cinema owner, and distributor. He's been involved in over 300 full-length motion pictures, and he is most known for his association with the Canon Group, Inc., an American film company which he co-owned with his cousin, Menahem. Globus played a significant role in developing the Israel film industry and later became a prominent figure in Hollywood, where he and Golan were nicknamed the Go-Go Boys for their fast-paced, low-budget filmmaking style. He is also known for pioneering the pre-sale strategy in film financing for his work in film distribution, including representing the major American studios in Israel. And Lacey, you're holding up a documentary that I haven't seen and you haven't seen, but you got it. And it's a precursor to what we're going to talk about in a little bit here. It's called The Go-Go Boys, and you have it.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's called The Go-Go Boys, and it says
hold the video up real quick. I have the camera here. So
there you go.
Yeah, hold that up. I want to see that.
Yep. So it says The Go-Go Boys inside the inside story of Canon Films is a documentary about 2 Israeli-born cousins, Menahem Golan and Yoram Globus, who, in pursuit of the American dream, turned the power structure upside down, producing over 300 films and becoming the most powerful independent film company in the world. It goes on, but I don't need to read that to you because you're all going to go out and find this movie and watch it because it's going to be awesome.
That's cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, a little bit of Menahem. Am I saying that right? Right.
Menahem, yeah.
He was born in May 31st, 1929, and he passed away August 8th, 2014. Originally, Menahem was a Israel film producer, screenwriter, and director. He co-owned the Canon Group with his cousin Yoram. Canon specialized in producing low to mid-budget American films, primarily genre films, during the 1980s after Golan Globus had achieved significant filmmaking success in Israel during the 70s. Golan produced films featuring actors such as Sean Connery, Sylvester Stallone, Chuck Norris, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Charles Bronson, and for a period was known as the producer of comic book style films like Masters of the Universe, Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, Captain America, and his aborted attempt to bring Spider-Man into the silver screen. Golan also produced and wrote and polished numerous film scripts under the pen name Joseph Goldman. At the time of his death, Golan had produced over 200 films, directed 44, and won 8 Kenor David Awards, as well as the Israel Prize in Cinema. He was nominated for a BAFTA Award for Best Foreign Language Film for Franco Zeffirelli's Otello. So Lacey,
Othello.
is it Othello? Okay, there you go.
Yeah. I think so.
Okay. So, Lacey, I want to go to you real quick here because I did want to bring this up real quick.
Mhm.
You have that documentary, and I'm going to showcase this one here, Electric Boogaloo.
Mhm.
This is Electric Boogaloo, the wild, untold story of canon films. You actually have the DVD there.
Yes.
But have you had a chance to watch it yet?
No. I thought I was watching it because there's a mini documentary on each of the American Ninja films, and I watched those, and then I realized that I had not done my homework because I originally thought we were going to do the films all first and then talk about the fellas. But I will have these watched by the next film that we do. So
Please do, because we're going to be bringing this up each time, and you
Cool.
don't have to apologize for anything because you've spent so much time on these already, and the making of and the behind the scenes. Kyle, you and I have both seen this. We talked about it, I think, on a Culture Clash. This is a big deal when it came out, when we were watching it. And I did want to mention, Kyle, as I get your thoughts on this, that if you go to, this was a Walmart thing where if you went and bought it's called The Bombs, Babes, and Blockbusters of Canon Films, a 10-pack DVD collection, which includes Missing in Action, Stallone and Cobra, Master of the Universe, Bloodsport, Hellbound, Invasion USA, The Delta Force, Stallone and Over the Top, Chuck Norris and the Hitman, and of course, it says here on the back and in the front, which is the reason why I bought it, includes Electric Boogaloo, the wild, untold story of canon films. Kyle, when we watch this, all of our friends were like, we got to watch this documentary. It's on Amazon. I think you have to rent it now. I don't know if it's free. But Kyle, we talked about this. Your thoughts on Electric Boogaloo and these guys?
So it's interesting because this documentary actually came out in like 2014, but it was kind of towards, I want to say, Kevin, maybe the end of COVID or even with the writer strike, there was like this big surge in interest in canon films again. And I don't know if there was an anniversary or something. I can't remember exactly. And this documentary got like a whole new round of steam because of this. Yeah. And Amazon kind of spotlighted it, and several other things were happening. And it was such an interesting phenomenon. And for a lot of us, I think it hit with the nostalgia, obviously, with canon films. And I mean, these two guys just came in with a whole different attitude about filmmaking and how they wanted to do it. I mean, it was almost like industrial line filmmaking. Bang, 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 bang. But we're going to spend all this kind of money on stars. We don't care about this, or that. We're doing it our way. And it's interesting how it worked for a very short period of time, and then it went south really, really quick.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the more interesting high rise, fast fall stories in Hollywood, but yet still had the high was incredibly high for canon films.
And didn't they pay Stallone like $10 million to do Over the Top? It was like crazy.
Oh, he had this insane contract with them that was just for like 3 or 4 films, and it was just huge at the time, and people's minds were just blown.
If you are interested in this Bombs, Babes, and Blockbusters of Canon Films 10-pack DVD collection with, of course, the documentary in there, totally worth it. You can find it on eBay, some around $20, some are a little less, some are a little bit more. Totally worth it if you're part of this genre and these films, and that documentary comes with it. It's last disc of it. Lacey.
Just a note, one of the reasons that they called it Electric Boogaloo is because Sam Firstenberg also directed Electric Boogaloo, Breakin' 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Sam. We're going to talk about Sam real quick here because we have to talk about how Sam is, first of all, he loves it. He gets the response from fans on these. And I got a picture here on YouTube of on the set of American Ninja and a current picture of Sam holding up American Ninja films there. And so Sam Firstenberg, he directed these, and I wanted to give you guys, first of all, a little idea on his IMDb here, starting in his early days. So he makes a couple of films in 79 and 81, and then he does Revenge of the Ninja in 83. He does Ninja 3, The Domination in 84. He does Breakin' 2, Electric Boogaloo in 84 as well. And then he does American Ninja in 85, okay? Then he does Avenging Force with Steve James and Dudikoff in 86, American Ninja 2, The Confrontation in 87. He does and we're going to bring this up in a little bit, but he does a movie called Riverbend that starred Steve James in 89. He does Delta Force 3, The Killing Game in 91. He does an episode of Tropical Heat, 6 episodes. Then he does this one, guys, American Samurai, right here with Doug Bradley. I'm going to be bringing that up later. Then he does Cyborg Cop in 93, Blood Warriors in 93, Cyborg Cop 2 in 94, Operation Delta Force, a TV movie in 97. And he does some other films after that, but that kind of gives you an idea of where he was in the 80s and early 90s. He's been very good with the fans and the fan response. I know he's done some appearances. He loves talking about this genre. He's very proud of the genre. But I want to kind of get your thoughts. And I'm going to start with you, Lacey, because I know you've heard a little bit about him while you were watching and listening to the audio commentary. Give me your thoughts on Sam.
Sure. Okay. So first of all, he's that guy that you want to just take him out for coffee or a beer or whatever his beverage preference is and just let him talk, because he will just start and just never stop. He is absolutely so genuine in these commentaries. He does all 4 of the commentaries.
Wow.
So he did one commentary on each one as the director with the stunt coordinator, and then he does a second commentary with it's a little bit more formalized with a movie editor who kind of commentates it, right? So or kind of directs his information gathering or information dumping, I guess. But he is just the sweetest guy, and his nickname is Shmooly.
Shmooly.
And
Nice.
everybody calls him Shmooly, and he talks, and he's also very like blunt, but it's one of those things where he's blunt, but he never means anything in a negative way. Like at one point during American Ninja 2, he starts talking about how Mike Stone, who is, well, he's
the villain, right?
Yes, but he's also a high level military martial arts guy, right? And his kind of claim to fame was that he was Elvis Presley's martial artist dojo guy, or not master.
He also has a small cameo in American Ninja 3 as well. It
Right.
has the karate.
But Shmooly decided that he was going to like spill a little tea and let everybody know that they should definitely read Priscilla Presley's autobiography, because there's a reason that Mike Stone did not continue to be, because apparently he ran away with Elvis's wife.
Oh, there you go.
There's some real fun little nuggets in these 2 commentaries. Well, in all 4 of them, really. But he doesn't say anything maliciously. He's just like, "Oh, you'll never get. Oh, this is so crazy." But first of all, he loves directing. He talks in the two little documentaries that are on these 2 films. They're both he probably only has 2 or 3 minutes in each of them, because they go to several different people, but he's always smiling. He's always like, you can tell that he's just finished laughing when he starts talking. So the interview must have been 7 hours long, and they probably got 3 minutes of usable footage just for that one documentary. But the commentaries are really, really fun to listen to.
Kyle, what is your thoughts on Sam Firstenberg? Because he's done films we've watched and we love.
I think he's one of those
outside of American Ninja 1 and 2.
Yeah. Excuse me. I think he's one of those directors that if you're from a certain time frame, if you're from the 80s and stuff like that, you've seen his films. You might not even know you've seen his films, but you've seen his films and enjoyed his films. And I think he's one of these directors too, because of his ties with Canon and these type of films. People know him to a certain extent, but again, like I said, there's so many people out there who like probably, if you were to ask them and they start naming films, they're going to name one of his films at some point that they've seen it. They just don't realize it. And everything I've read about him too is, like Lacey said, he's just one of the more genuine, down to earth directors. Gets along with his cast, very supportive of his cast, and is a great storyteller. And that's one of the reasons why he's such a great director, is because he's got such an eye for storytelling. And he's one of those guys, like you said, Lacey, I go pay 4 hours with him just talking about his movie life. I'm down with that. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm going to bring him up a little bit soon, actually, because we're going to talk about Steve James at the end of our cast and discussion, because he comes up again and he does something really cool. I want to get into that, but let's go ahead and get into the rest of the cast here. Of course, we'll talk about American Ninja first from 1985, guys. And the cast we have, of course, is Michael Dudikoff as Joe. We have Steve James as Jackson. My crush for a while there, Judie Aronson as Patricia. And we have Gooch Kook as Hitchcock. John Fujioka as Shinuki, Don Stewart as Ortega, John LaMotta as Ronaldo, Tadashi Yamashita as the Black Star Ninja, and Philip Brock as Charlie. These are the main characters in American Ninja. I want to get you guys' thoughts on the rest of the cast. We're going to save the Steve James discussion after we talk about the rest of the cast from both the films here, guys, because we got to dive into Steve James. So, Kyle.
So just a brief, let's have the Dudikoff thing just real quick here, because here's the thing with Dudikoff. Good looking guy. Absolutely zero charisma. Let's be honest. Michael Dudikoff has very little charisma in this film. He's got this very soft voice in here, but I know they're trying to downplay him as this mystery character, but there are times when he's just coming across as like, give me a little life, Michael. Give me a little.
He's kind of a dick, to be honest with you. Yeah,
he's a little. He's better.
Lacey's nodding her head. She agrees. Yeah,
he's definitely better in American Ninja 2, but still. But to be honest with you, outside of Steve James, at some point, just about every character in this movie is a bit of a dick. Let's be honest. I mean,
that's a good call. Go ahead.
But you know, you've got, what's great about this movie is it fills all the classic 80s tropes of the actors who are playing the villains. You've got the Black Star Ninja, and it's actually great 80s casting. It really truly is.
Judie Aronson, I mean, 85, she does this, and she does was it Weird Science?
Weird Science.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I recently discovered her in Friday the 13th Part 4, where I discovered more of her. Just gonna put that out there. Lacey, your thoughts on the cast of American Ninja?
I think the cast for the, how do I describe this? Okay, so the director was very, very well known for reusing people, because he, much like a lot of directors, when they find people they get along with, they continue to work with them. I think that there was a little bit of information in the commentary about how, when depending on the political climate of the time, they have to decide who the bad guy is going to be. And in this, they decided on a Frenchman, a Spanish guy, an undefined Asian character, and then so you had like all the people that we were potentially politically not friendly with at the time.
Right.
And so you have a lot of characters, a lot of actors who are being put into roles where maybe they're not French or maybe they're not, whatever. And so I think that with what they were given as far as the script is concerned, because the script was written by someone who they found someone to write it who was a military person. They didn't hire someone who was a screenwriter. They found someone who had knowledge of military things and said, hey, you want to write this script? And he was like, never done that before. Okay, cool. So it was like, oh. So I think that the casting for what they were given, I think they all did well. As far as Michael Dudikoff, I hadn't seen this in so long. When he first opened his mouth, I was shocked at his voice.
Yeah.
I was very much like, oh, honey. Oh, like he just, it's the
first thing
little
he
boy
says,
sound.
Is the first thing he says, are you okay, to Judie Aronson's character? Is that the first thing he says? Is that the first time he talks?
Yeah. And it's just kind of a very light, I don't know. Cause the fact that when Charlie goes up to him to try and get the hacky sack back or whatever,
right,
and he just sort of stands there and like flipping his butterfly knife, which by the way, he never uses during the film. Like he just never uses it. That's just not a thing that he does. Which by the way is a Filipino weapon, I believe, originally.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, but they're not set in the film. It's just a weird, like, why would he have that if they're supposed to be okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
anyone else in the cast jump out for you?
I sort of dug. I think that Charlie is my favorite. I can't remember the actor's name, but
Philip Brock.
Brock. I think he's my favorite.
Gotcha.
I always go for the comedian.
I hear you. He was fun. I definitely. Yep. I love Tadashi Yamashita, the Black Star Ninja. I found him scary. I found him intimidating, and I like it in both of these films you get the trope where you get the master ninja that just goes and beats up and kills a couple of goons that they're trying to train just to show how badass he is, and I love that he had the little star, and I love the fact that that he spots like this guy's got skills, even though he just learned them in real life, but he I feel like he's the reason that makes you fear what Dudikoff's character can do and what he's done. He's kind of like the guy in the gangster in John Wick when he hears like all the stuff that John Wick did and all he goes is, oh, that type of thing. I feel like if it wasn't for Tadashi as Black Star Ninja, really kind of like, this guy's a badass in so many words, we gotta watch out for him. I thought he was good. He was a good villain. So,
but it's also one of those things where when you have a movie called American Ninja, where there's one American who stands out, you have to give him one person to fight. Yeah. So they can't just have a bunch of ninjas. They have to have like the Uber Ninja or like the Master Ninja or like the Black Star Ninja. They have to have the one that's the standout.
Well, let's get into the cast of American Ninja 2 here, guys. And this is where it gets kind of fun. Also, of course, directed by Sam Firstenberg. We got Michael Dudikoff and Steve James back. We got Larry Poindexter as Charlie. I think you spoke of him earlier. We also have Gary Conway as the lead villain, the Lion. We have Jeff Calentano as Wild Bill. We have Michelle Boats as Alicia Sanborn, and we have Mike Stone as Tojo Ken. He, of course, is the lead ninja. And Len Sparrowhawk as Pat McCarthy, Jonathan Pinar as Taylor, Bill Curry as Inspector Singh, Dennis Folbige as Sir Cloudsy Smith, and Elmo Phyllis as Toto the Boy. I want to get your guys' thoughts on the cast of American Ninja 2. Kyle, I'll start with you.
This is a much more fun cast because of Wild Bill.
Wild Bill is awesome in this movie.
Wild Bill, just how the Marines are in this movie is great. Larry Poindexter as Charlie is a great third wheel to Dudikoff and James. Great cast. You just got the guys who have the look for that classic 80s villain, but I actually think this cast is a little bit more fun. You get a lot more energy from Dudikoff in this film.
You do.
You feel the difference, like he's just feels more comfortable in his acting abilities and probably his martial arts abilities from training between these films.
Yeah, because he eventually does get a black belt. So, yeah. Good call, Kyle. Lacey, what are your thoughts on the cast of American Ninja 2?
I think, again, it's one of those things where they were trying to figure out who they were arguing with. And at this point, a couple years later, there was some serious stuff about the American military complex. And there's a lot of stuff about potential, the perfect soldier, that kind of thing. So I think that the script also kind of dictated how well the actors did. Because I think all the actors are great. It's just that depends on what the script you're given, right. Only say so much when you've got the script in front of you. I think they all did well. I do think that Charlie, again, is one of my favorites. He's hilarious. And I think the only person I would kind of recast as I think that they were trying too hard to match Judy Aaron, from the first one. And I think that
you would recast the woman, the actress?
Yeah, I think that they were trying to go for a type instead of, I don't know. I think that some of the language that she had, I think she was not given enough to work with.
Right.
And therefore she came across as a watered down version of the original.
Right.
And I don't think that that's what they intended, but I think that, again, it's not the actress. It's the script that she was given. And the fact that because of that script, I don't think that she came across as powerful as she could have, because she kicks a little bash, not a lot, a little bit,
I liked the lead ninja guy, Mike Stone. I thought he was great in this. He also looked menacing. I just love it also too when you just see him perched, up on a rock, looking down while the other ninjas are getting their ass kicked, and you just see Joe looking up there and sizing each other out. The mile long stare between ninjas. But to me, this movie is about Wild Bill and Steve James. We'll get into Steve James in a second, but I love Wild Bill. He's like the cool commander you want. He's not a dick. He listens to you, and he's like, I think we got to go rescue. And I love how he's just a cool dude. He's funny too, and I just thought he had some character too. Lacey,
he reminds me of Sergeant Bilko.
Yeah.
Just like, he's gonna do all the crazy stuff, and as long as the higher command doesn't, poke their nose too far, he'll get stuff done, but he's going to do it his own way.
Yeah, good call. All right, as we promised, we need to get into the Steve James discussion here. I don't think you guys would disagree that Steve James, not only is he the accomplished martial artist, but he's also probably the best actor in these movies as well. He's got a lot of charisma. I've seen a lot of his films. We've discussed him before. A little backstory on him here. He was born February 19th, 1952 in New York, and he died December 18th, 1993 in Burbank of pancreatic cancer. Steve James was often cast in action movies as the hero's sidekick, despite usually being a better actor and fighter than the star. James was raised in New York City, attended CW Post College as an art and film major. Upon graduating, became involved in stage work and TV commercials. He started in film as a stuntman, working in such New York productions as Ghostbusters, The Wiz, The Warriors, and The Wanderers. His first major film role was Robert Ginty's sidekick in The Exterminator. He later played sidekick to such stars as Michael Dudikoff 3 times, David Carradine, and Chuck Norris. His last 2 films were the pilot for the TV series Mantis, which aired on the Fox network just a few weeks after his death at the age of 41 of pancreatic cancer, and Blood Fist 5, Human Target with Don the Dragon Wilson, which premiered after Steve's death. I want to get your guys' thoughts, first of all, on Steve James in these films and just your thoughts on Steve in general. And then I'm going to get into a couple of films of his. But I want to start with you, Lacey, because I know that I'm sure there was a lot to talk about with the audio commentary regarding Steve.
Yeah, on all 4 of the commentaries, every time he made a new appearance or like a new scene, anytime he was singled out for something he was doing, Shmuley would say, oh, God, rest in peace. He was such a good this or so. He was. I mean, it was very, very much a positive memory or commemorative, I guess, discussion about Steve. In the second commentary on the second film, he actually talks about the week that Steve died and how they had all gotten together, and he had checked into the hotel on a Friday and he had passed away on Sunday, and it was just such a shock. And I mean, that's another thing about the director that I love, is that he's so very, like, he's just so genuine. Like, he genuinely enjoys making these movies. And when he's talking about something funny, he's really laughing. And when he's talking about something sad, he's genuinely concerned, and genuinely, like, saddened by the passing of his friend. And so it was a good conversation about his career, because he didn't just stick to American Ninja 1 and 2 when he talked about Steve. He talked about some other things they worked on together and stuff like that. I'm sure, and he does reference the documentaries, so
nice.
I'm sure there's some information in those that's probably crossing over. But as far as my knowledge of him, I think I've maybe seen 3 or 4 of his films. I haven't seen a lot of them. It's so funny to see him as the sidekick, because he's a giant man. He's a ginormous individual. Like, just look at the melon on that man. Like you see the picture, if you're watching as opposed to listening, you see the picture of Dudikoff standing next to him, and it's like, it looks like he's standing there with mini-me. He's just this giant dude, and to see him as like the second in command or the sidekick or whatever just seems odd. But time frame wise, and also, things like they filmed the second film in South Africa before apartheid ended. right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff, in the film industry at the time. It still wasn't something, unless you were like Bill Cosby or Sidney Poitier, or maybe a couple of others, maybe Richard Pryor. There weren't a lot of like African American leading men who were given the opportunity to even try to carry a film.
Yeah.
They were put in, they found someone who was talented or skilled in whatever need they had, and they put him in as a second to a white actor who could carry the film with, I'm using my air quotes for those of you who are listening, not watching. Because, and so I think that he was of his time. I think that he was definitely underused.
Yeah.
But I mean, if he started his career today, he would be The Rock, like huge. But I don't think that he was ever given that one role that made him a bankable leading man, just because the timing of it.
Yeah.
Which
Kyle,
sucks, by the way. I'm not excusing the 80s by any means. Like, let's call it what it is. It's
Kyle, your thoughts on Steve James?
Steve James, in whatever movie he was in, was the most charismatic actor in the film. Whether he was writing alongside Michael Dudikoff in American Ninja, starring next to Chuck Norris in the Delta Force, even in his own films where he did get a chance to be a little bit more of a lead man, carry the film. The man just had, you said it, The Rock. He has that charisma. He has that natural pull you in aspect to him. And you want to root for the guy. He's an amazing martial artist. And guys, I've said this many times in conversations off camera and off podcast. There is a sliding doors moment if Steve James never gets sick and dies, that Steve James could have been Blade.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider the late 80s relationship that Marvel had with Canon Films, when you're talking like The Punisher and a few other things. Steve James could have easily been Blade. And talk about sliding doors changing things drastically. It's one of those moments. But this is somebody who was taken from us way too soon. He had so much more to offer us. And I think if he had lived, he would have gotten bigger in the 90s than he ever did in the 80s.
He could have ended up being Nick Fury.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong. I love me some Samuel L. Jackson. But
what sets Steve aside here is that he's actually a good actor.
Mm-hmm.
He's charismatic. He's funny, good looking, and he knows martial arts and he knows stunt work. And I'm looking at his IMDb here, and it's interesting because he was Baseball Fury in the Warriors. He was in Enter the Game in '78. Played a small part in All My Children in back in '84. Then he does The Exterminator in 1980. He does Exterminator 2. He does. He's also was in Arthur. He had a small uncredited role in Arthur. He did the movie Vigilante, the movie with Ken Wall called The Soldier. I have that, good movie. And then he goes on to the Brother from Another Planet that we talked about last year from 1984. He's the bar owner, I believe. He does a T.J. Hooker, an Fatal Vision film, Dukes of Hazzard, Flamingo Kid, Hotel. He was in Mask, American Ninja. He was in Weird Science. He was when what's his name, Wyatt's going out and getting drunk. He's one of the guys at the bar there. Delta Force, as Kyle mentioned. Avenging Force. He was also in Moonlighting. He did Hollywood Shuffle, Johnny Be Good. I mean, he just went in and all these other films. He was also in Pee-wee's Playhouse. So he did a little bit of everything. He had a certain look and style to him. And I started becoming really, I'm not going to say obsessed, but just enamored with him and what could have been. I found myself missing Steve James. I was missing Steve James. I wanted more of Steve James. And so I started kind of going down a Steve James rabbit hole over the last 10 years. And I'm looking at his IMDb. I'm like, why is he always the sidekick? Did he star in where he was the star of a film? And I actually came across a film that I was curious about, and it was called Street Hunter. This film that he did in 1990. And yes, we will be discussing this later in our time warp, Lacey. Just want to let you know. Now, you can find this on YouTube. I suggest you check it out. But I have a bone to pick with this movie. First of all, the movie's fun, awesome with Steve James in it. He's got a Rottweiler. He's a bounty hunter. His name is Logan Blade, by the way, Lacey. Blade is a tough ex-police officer turned bounty hunter who has to confront a street gang led by a young Angel and his ruthless bodyguard, Colonel Walsh, played by Reb Brown. Also has a young John Leguizamo in it. But my problem with this film is the cover. Reb Brown is the bad guy. Reb was probably a little bit bigger name at the time because he had been in a lot of stuff, and he totally overshadows Steve James in the cover. And I'll showcase my Laserdisc for Exhibit A. Where's Steve James? He's in Reb Brown's shadow and shirt. You could barely see him in this.
Like he's literally in his shadow.
Yeah, and it pisses me off. It really, really does. But Steve James has so much charisma in this. He looks really cool. This is the Laserdisc. By the way, it probably came out on VHS. Very hard to find. Not released on DVD, by the way, but you can find it on YouTube. So make sure you check it out. But I did find a cover released somewhere. It looks like an overseas VHS where Steve James is on the cover as himself and the dog. And it's a dangerous world. He's a dangerous man, and he's the law. Fun movie if you can find it. Make sure you check it out. So I was thinking, okay, this is the only film that he stars as the lead actor, as the lead thing, right? Where he's the hero. Well, I was wrong, guys. Just recently, I found out that there was another film he did where, also directed by Sam Firstenberg, called Riverbend. And this is a social commentary movie about racism in the 60s. And he comes across, of course, a white racist sheriff in a small town. And he's an ex-serviceman. And he, basically, fights against racism, among other things here. And so I looked into this. I'm like, I found a VHS copy for like $70 or $80. I'm like, damn. I'm like, there's got to be. And then I found this picture here. I'm like, wait a minute, that's a DVD cover. What is this? So I did a little research, and I found a Facebook page, by the way. Check it out if you're a Steve James fan. It's called My Dad, Steve James. And it's done by one of Steve James's kids. And a lot of people, they post a lot of picture about it. But what is Sam Firstenberg's nickname, Lacey?
Shmooly.
Well, he goes on Facebook as Sam Shmulik Firstenberg, and he actually has news, and you can watch it on YouTube as well. Sam does a really nice video, and this was last year because someone who was a fan purchased the original film or negatives, and they're looking to release this on DVD or Blu-ray soon. And they have actually showcased this film in its new restored way in several film festivals, including Black History Month. And Sam Firstenberg was wonderful. He had one of the hats from one of the film festivals. He had a shirt from another one saying, you got to go see this. I'm going to be at this. And this all happened last year, by the way. So this film should be coming out, but he talks about how this just had like a very limited release, and it starred Steve James. He was wonderful in this. And he says that this film now is even more important to watch than it is back then because of what's happening in the climate now. If that makes any sense. But be on the lookout for Riverbend. Check out the Facebook, My Dad, Steve James. It's a wonderful tribute. And I would just want to thank, Director Sam for bringing this out to people and letting them know there's this lost movie out there that co-stars the wonderful Steve James. Any final thoughts on Steve James, guys?
I would be so curious to know what his career would have been like had he lived.
Yeah,
because
41 is.
I think he steals a lot of roles from Wesley Snipes. I think he becomes a lot bigger. I honestly believe he probably ends up being one of the biggest action stars of the 90s.
Lacey.
I also think that it's possible that he might have fought aliens alongside Jeff Goldblum.
No. I don't think he
tried to smack Chris Rock.
I don't think he takes the Will Smith role per se. but he's in a lot more movie. He's in Independence Day. He might be the Adam Baldwin role in Independence Day, or he might even be in Independence Day as a whole different character, maybe like a mentor to Will Smith.
Yeah. Yeah, what could have been. So we have the Ocean's 11. You think we need one more? Who would you add to the cast? And you could just pick one or two. Or the Tom Selleck was Indiana Jones. Which cast member would you place with another? But I did want to mention that during these films that were coming out, there was a lot of other action stars on the rise. Some were already risen. They were there. And would one of these action, or I should say martial artists, were on the rise, would they have been a good addition to this film? Would you add one of these? Let's go ahead and start with Jackie Chan here, guys. And of course, we have Jean-Claude Van Damme. But just so you know, so Jackie Chan was busy, of course, during this time. And during this time, I have it that he's doing several films with Sammo Hung in around 1985, a movie called Heart of the Dragon. We also, of course, have Chuck Norris, and we also have an upcoming, this guy over here. Here we have him here is Jean-Claude Van Damme, and he did No Retreat, No Surrender in 85. So I'm kind of placing them all around the time of the first film here. We also have, of course, Steven Seagal. He was doing some stuff behind the work. I think he was doing some stunt work as well as choreographer. We also have, let's get with the ladies here. We have Cynthia Rothrock and Michelle Yeoh together in a film in 1985 called Yes, Madam. We also have, as I mentioned too, we have Sammo Hung, and I have actually one of the films that he and Jackie Chan did called Dragons Forever. I'm just going to showcase that real quick right here. Fun action film. We also have, don't forget, guys, we also have Donnie Yen coming up with Jet Li. Donnie Yen was Junkin Tai Chi in 84. And we also have Jet Li. He was busy around during this time. And one of the greatest villains of all time in a movie we will be discussing, Bloodfist, sorry. Bloodsport. Bloodsport. Say it right.
Third time's the charm.
Bolo Yoon. So Kyle, would you add any of these to the cast, or is there anyone jump out? I mean, these people actually knew martial arts.
Okay, so there's three. There's three of these people on this list that could have fit into any of the American Ninja films. Either of these first two. Number one and number two are the ladies, Cynthia Rothrock and Michelle Yeoh. Either one of them would have been a great addition to these films, whether they were a good guy, a bad guy, whatever. They could have seamlessly gone into one of these films as a character and fit right in. And the other one is Bolo. Bolo is a villain that should have been in an American Ninja film.
Yeah.
He should have been the heavy, because how much are we paying on pay-per-view for the Steve James Bolo throwdown?
Oh my God, right? Lacey, what about you? Any of these jump out at you that you'd like to add to the cast, or someone else I'm not mentioning?
You know, I've been doing a rewatch of Hawaii Five-0, the reboot, and Mark Dacascos is of course he was in John Wick 3. He's been in a ton of things, but he played Wo Fat. He was a kind of a the big bad. Yeah, right. I think he could have. No, I don't know where to put him. I mean, there's so many people. I think that at this point, if you put anybody else in there, you're just going to be pulling from the rest of the cast.
It's funny you mentioned Mark Dacascos. Sorry to interrupt you,
sure,
Lacey, but I flashed this earlier. But this is David Bradley, who came into the American Ninja franchise in number 3, 4, and 5. And it says here, introducing martial arts sensation Mark Dacascos, and this was a 92 film. So you're right in the same time zone there.
Right on.
So, yeah.
Okay.
A little soon for Mark in the 80s for the first American.
He would have been.
What if he was the kid in 2? What if he was the kid in 2? He could have replaced the kid in 2.
Kevin, no. The kid in 2, Ernie Reyes Jr.
Yeah, that would have been a good one. Yeah. Lacey, sorry to interrupt, but go ahead.
No, it's okay. It's okay. But I think that Costco, because didn't he do martial arts before he became an actor, right? So you've got potentially someone who's, see, the thing is, when you look on his IMDb, it doesn't give his age. It says he was born on the month and date, but it doesn't give a year.
I like that. That's a good call.
Yeah, but I think that he might have been fun as maybe one of like the standout, or he could have been. The thing is that they don't put anyone. They didn't have any, for lack of a better, I don't know. I feel like there could have been an Asian military personnel, like someone in the military could have been Asian American, just because they kind of put everything on like the ninjas being bad guys, and like there's only one good guy that's technically a ninja, and he's a white guy. So it might have been nice to have an Asian American as one of the military members. Just to not,
I think that works more in two than one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good call. Mm-hmm. Well, let's get into what these ninjas do is they fight. So let's get into our best fight scenes, and let's start with American Ninja. We got several that we can choose. Several we've already mentioned as well. There's some fun ones here. I'll just throw mine out. I love the warehouse fight scene. There was some fun weaponry stuff going on there as well. And I loved how you had Dudikoff using a lot of the ninjas' own weapons against each other. And there were some very clever moves there that I still think hold up. I thought they were pretty cool. And I love the fight between the main ninja at the end where the helicopter's waiting for him. Kyle, give me some of your favorite fight scenes in American Ninja.
I'm with you with the warehouse. I think that's great. The fight scene between Dudikoff and the Black Star Ninja is great, and it's also absolutely insane. And again, I go back to the first initial fight scene with Steve James and Michael Dudikoff.
Yeah, the bucket.
You knew Dudikoff was in over his head, and Steve James made him look so damn good.
Yeah. What about you, Lacey? American Ninja, what's your favorite fight scene?
I think it's gonna have to be the bucket fight. I think that's what kind of sets up his friendship. It's what kind of brings him as part of the crew, part of the family. I think it's. I don't know. I think it's
okay. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. So for American Ninja 2, we got some here. Of course, we have the famous beach fights as well. And then it's funny too, because there was so much. You could tell there was a cheaper budget on this because they used that bar a lot. There were several fight scenes in there, and there were some comedic moments in there. You could shout out the bar scene. And of course, I love the compound fight, when they go to the ninja compound, and then you have the final fight between Mike Stone and Mike Stone cheats, by the way. He pulls out a shotgun and tries to do that. And so that's some good stuff there. But Lacey, so go back to you. What's your favorite fight scene in American Ninja 2?
I think just for one reason, maybe two, the fight at the beginning at the beach where at one point, the very beginning of the fight scene, you see Michael Dudikoff grabs a sword from one of the other fallen, one of the other people he's already kicked his butt. He picks up the sword and he smacks it towards the next person, and it breaks his sword in half. Like, really? Like, I know you're trying to say that he's amazing with a sword, but if the other guy's sword was not great swords. And then when they jump off of the cliff, I know that in behind the scenes they jumped into the water, whatever, but in the movie they jumped off that cliff that you see full well is 20 feet minimum. Like just the frame of the film is 20 feet minimum. And they jump into a moving speedboat, and nobody breaks an ankle. Nobody has a sprain.
Oh, famous 80 cut scenes. Thank you.
Yeah, famous 80s editing.
Yes, absolutely. And then there's the one bar fight where Steve James continually gets his shirt slowly more and more ripped off. And by the end of it, when he's walking towards the back, you can see where they had to put a clip on the back of his shirt to keep the whole uniform from just falling off of him, which is hilarious and also awesome.
Kyle, what's your favorite fight scene in American Ninja 2?
It's the beach. It's so crazy. It's so fun. It's so outrageous. But there is another fight scene that I'm kind of partial to. And it's when Michael Dudikoff first goes to the bar and he's going to go meet the guy. And that gang that we saw at the very beginning of the film confronts him, and just how he just lays them low with no effort at all. And they're just scrambling. And then when they come up a little bit later up into there, and he kicks two of their asses, and the rest of them, he kicks the big guy through the door, and the rest of them just scatter. It's just,
I like that. Steve James has a certain level of fight. He has the fights with his shirt on. His fight when it's kind of being ripped off, but when he takes his shirt off, I love it when he fights the ninjas in the compound. He has those butterfly knives and stuff, and I just those are my favorite of the Steve James fights. I do like the end fight scene though between Dudikoff and the main ninja and how he tries to cheat and gets him back. Kyle,
it reminds me of the old Bixby Hulk line. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry. You wouldn't like Steve James with the shirt off.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so one of the other categories fits in this one here is that you took him out with what? Your favorite weapon or inanimate object used as a weapon, or Clarence Boddicker famously said in RoboCop, guns, guns, guns. Everyone's got guns. So let's go ahead and talk about American Ninja. We get obviously we get that beginning ambush scene. We see some Uzis. We also see Steve James opening up with the M60. He's got the rocket launcher that he blows up the helicopter with. And then, of course, towards the end, we see Dudikoff dressed as a ninja. He's got his famous size. We see a lot of arrows and knives. We see ninja stars and ninja heads. And then, Kyle, we see the master Black Star Ninja pull out a freaking laser. Now, I know Dr. Evil wanted lasers on his sharks, but did he ask for lasers for his ninjas?
No. But even before that, he pulls out the ninja bullets. Because remember, he shoots at him with like some kind of wrist thing and it's bullets. I mean, this is the craziness of the American Ninja, especially the first one. Yes. Is you have all these great classic ninja weapons being used. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I mean, not only does the Black Star Ninja have a ninja laser, not only does he have a ninja bullet, he does have a ninja flamethrower too.
He does.
I'm like, not even Storm Shadow had all this crap. Come on now.
Lacey, your thoughts on the weapons used in American Ninja?
Okay. I don't know which one it is, and it's kind of a flash. But one of them, it looks like they have, and I don't know if these even existed at the time, but you know, after you do barbecue, they have these like pulled pork shredders, yes. Right? So it's kind of like a little weird miniature Wolverine situation, but this is the 80s. I don't think that they had those in the 80s, but it looks like he's holding little like pork shredders. And I'm
that's actually you have two versions of that. It's a classic ninja weapon. One that either fit over the wrist, kind of like a Wolverine claw, or they had the ones because they would also use them for climbing that were like little inside the hand claws, and and they'd use them as weapons too.
So I like those. I like those because I don't know what they're called, and I feel like I could use those and successfully escape a situation if I needed to.
You know, one of my favorite ninja weapons of all time is the nunchucks. We don't really get a lot of that, but ninja stars were used, I thought, pretty well in this. And you know what's funny is I liked that ninjas, they'll cheat. They'll not necessarily cheat. You think they're cheating because they only should stick to the silent weapons. They shouldn't use modern technology. I call bullshit on that. I love the fact that Black Star Ninja's got all the stuff on him. As cheesy it is, I love it. And some people might think that's not honorable, blah, blah, blah. And we get that with Mike Stone in the second one. He brings out a freaking shotgun. He tries to kill the American Ninja. What's funny about this is that they would use any weapon that they could if they exhaust the silent weapons. And I'm a huge fan of Scott Adkins. He is a martial artist. He's been in a lot of films. And he actually did a Ninja and a Ninja 2 back in 2014, 15, 16. And what's funny is the evil ninja in that actually has two pistols like behind him that he uses as a last resort. And some people are like, wait a minute, he's a freaking ninja. He shouldn't have pistols. Well, I'm sorry. If your silent stuff ain't working, you bring out the big guns. And I thought that was kind of cool. Kyle?
You just mentioned Scott Adkins. We need to, that's a name I've been saving you for this podcast. I want to see if it would come up naturally. Scott Adkins right now, he's the perfect man to do the American Ninja remake.
He is 10 years ago. I don't know if you've seen him lately.
I haven't seen him.
A little older.
Is the age kicking in?
Yeah, the age is kicking in. If they would have done the reboot, I mean, Ninja's pretty much his version of American Ninja, but he's actually British. but and stuff. He's a really good actor, actually. He's surprisingly a good actor, but when I saw Hard to Kill 2, that's when I first discovered Scott Adkins, and I started going down the Scott Adkins whole deep dive, and he did a couple of ninja films, and the first one was better than the second one. But anyway, but I want to get into American Ninja 2, some of the weapons we have here. Steve James pulling out the big barrel shotgun. We saw Uzis. He also had the butterfly knives. And then there's Mike Stone in 2 with the shotgun I told you about. And I love the fact that you see someone throw the throwing star, and then you have the actor that already had the stuntman already has a star embedded in his head, and then he does a little like kickback, like he just got hit, right, Lacey?
Yes, but the best part about that is that when you see the person throwing it right before that, he throws it like underhand, like a softball pitch.
Yeah.
Which is like, what? No, what just happened?
Physics say that ain't happening, but in 80s canon ninja films, it's happening.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Hold on. Kyle's doing the Zach Morris timeout. What you got, Kyle?
As we're talking about these weapons and these guns, it's time to have the conversation, Kevin.
What's that?
We need to talk about the difference and how spoiled we are now in the modern era of John Wick and the Raid, and going back and watching these films, which at the time we thought were amazing action movies. Nobody's gonna.
I was wondering when you're gonna bring this up, Kyle. So let's go ahead.
Anybody who grew up in that era, if you say otherwise, you're lying. But to watch these films now, and in the perspective of the evolving of action movies, that to me, and I will die on this. I die on the Ninja Blade sword. The Raid and John Wick changed action movies so much, and especially the Raid. The Raid changed action fights. John Wick, I'll give the gun foo to and everything like that, but the Raid changed the pacing and everything of action fights.
The martial arts and gunplay. Yeah. No.
And to go back and watch this now, it's more comedy than it is like, wow, I'm being blown away by action, because the deliberateness of the movements. And Lacey, you brought it up about the stuntman dance before, and that's of this time. But the deliberance, the sound effects of the punching, how blatantly obvious they miss on some of these punches in these movies is so crazy. The use of the weapons, he's throwing weapons, and they're making, like, at one point he throws a tire iron that makes the craziest curve move I've ever seen, and you can just tell, and it's the budgeting, and you understand it. It's canon films, you roll with it. But this is a master class, I think, in watching this movie and watching today, and I think there's so much you can teach and learn from it. So I just had to bring that up.
Lacey, your comments on Kyle's point about the difference in action now and then, and how we still look at these films. Yeah.
Okay. There's a lot of different comments that I have. I think, first of all, I think that there are a lot of tricks that directors know now that they didn't know back then. The whole thing with the physics of the tire iron, that's going to be crossing the line, just crossing the wrong lines, as far as the point of view. But I think that from the 80s until now, I think we have a very clear like a learning curve for the audience, because watching anything in the 80s, they spoon fed us. If you're watching like Scarecrow and Mrs. King or the X-Files, even a little bit towards the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, they're spoon feeding. If you watch any sort of doctor show, St. Elsewhere, Chicago Hope, any like NYPD Blue, they're telling you every little thing. It's all exposition, right?
Yeah.
And when it comes to an action film, number one, they're having, it's a martial arts film. It's not a specified martial art film.
Right.
So a lot of it, I think, is that people now, the audiences now, they know that there's like 600 martial arts to choose from, right? And everyone, and also there's a respect for martial arts now that wasn't given back then. Back then it was, I can learn how to kick ass too. When a lot of martial arts are based on defense as opposed to offense, right? And so I think that there is There's a deference that is being paid to learning and making sure that things are done properly, and making sure that everyone who deserves credit for these things is put into those positions to get the credit. I also think that the audiences know more about filmmaking now, and just the technology. Like the movie cameras back then what Kyle, you were talking about Jet Li and Lethal Weapon 4 before we started. Like they had to tell him to slow down because the film, they couldn't actually catch what he was doing on film.
Yeah. Well, okay. You guys both bring up great points about this. And I love how we as fans of film, we know how well fight choreography's gotten. It's gotten safer too. Mm-hmm. But we look back during this time, though, with the whole, as we're celebrating canon, that risks were taken, and it was edge of your seat filmmaking. And, yes, maybe there weren't unions and it wasn't safe, but we look back and that's why we like it. We look like, and yes, the martial arts in the first one with Michael Dudikoff wasn't great, but did we care? No, it was freaking ninjas, and it was an American and a good old friend kicking ass on ninjas and stuff. It's, we just look back and do that. So yeah. Now,
and
guys,
particle board and breakaway glass are a thing that we want in our 80s movies.
Exactly.
We want to see people going through the glass. We want to see people going through the coffee table. We want that.
All right, and Kyle, again, before we move on, Kyle, real quick.
I just want to say too, I'm not complaining. I hope nobody's
no, not
complaining.
Yeah,
it's just it's amazing to look at it and how much we've evolved, and I think, because we've evolved so much, when we go back and watch something like this, how much our perspective and how we look at it changes.
Yeah. All right, guys. Okay, sorry, we got it. We're running a little long here. Let's get into the next category here because we got a couple fun ones I want to get your guys' take on. If you were a non-speaking extra on set, which scene would you want to be in? And just let me know from which film it is, and who would you be? Kyle, let's start with you.
It's American Ninja 1. I want to be one of the army guys there watching the Steve James Dudikoff fight with the bucket.
Kyle, you stole my thunder. Well played. Lacey, what about you?
I'm okay with just being like maybe the secretary when they have to drag them all in from the beach and they're all just standing there in their little beach outfits, being all wet, pretty.
I know which character you're talking about.
Because you don't get that a lot. Like a lot of times 80s action movies didn't really have they always had like the buxom blonde who was like being rescued. And while they did have that in this film, there was a lot of like shirtless and or physicality shown by the gentleman, which I
got you.
Is a valid place for my eyes to go.
My honorable mention would be in American Ninja 2, The Confrontation. I want to be just one of those super soldier ninjas or the guards behind them with guns. I'd love to be in that scene. That would be a lot of fun. So, especially when the evil villain's doing his speech, and I thought that was great. So, okay, here's a fun one, guys. I'm curious to see what you guys would say. As an extra, you're friends with the on-set prop master. They say, hey, you can take one thing from the set. What prop are you taking? Could be from each one of the films. I'm gonna go first. Oh, Kyle, you got one? Go ahead.
I've got two because
you got two.
All right. I think one is a default. We should all get a throwing star.
A throwing star off the set. Yeah. Now, do you want the one that actually was embedded in that ninja head, or just some rando that they picked up?
The ninja head might be a little messy. I'm just saying that. Come on, there's only one prop to have from American Ninja 1. I want the ninja laser.
You want the laser? That's pretty darn cool. Yeah. Lacey, what about you? What prop are you stealing from the set and which film?
I mean, depending on the situation, I would just go home with a nice pair of little red shorts.
I think we should just be very careful here how we approach the rest of this, Kevin.
That is such.
I am not going to be able to watch American Ninja 2 the same ever again. Thank you for that, Lacey. You've
well, think about it. Like that's like quintessential for this film. If you see those little red shorts, because I'd put them in a shadow box, right?
Okay. I would have never thought that, but
you would know exactly what movie that was from because come on.
I think Lacey wins a category. I'm just going to throw the set of size that Dudikoff fought battle at the very end. But my favorite though is the butterfly knives that Steve James had in 2. Freaking love those there. So, but Lacey wins. All right. So speaking of our category of the Vanilla Ice Cool as Ice 1991 award to the most dated thing or person in this movie. Well, they were right next to each other. The little red shorts that Steve James wears in 2 and the body glove outfit that Michael Dudikoff has, just as on the beach scene. Those are pretty dated. You guys have any other nominations? Kyle?
There's actually, we could be here for 2 hours. This is a whole podcast on its own. But to me, it's the Army Jeeps.
The Army Jeeps.
In the American Ninja 1, because they're all these little style Army Jeeps that they make them look like they can barely go 35 miles an hour.
Yeah.
They all like you have the Jeep chase with the sergeant and Joe, and they're just like they can't outrace each other. It's just
that's a good
one of the most 80s things ever.
Lacey,
you've kind of mentioned the shorts are a little dated. Are you?
The shorts are super dated. They really are. But I will say, in the first one, her outfit,
Judie Aronson,
the general's daughter's name.
Yeah.
Her outfit is very 1985.
It is.
Like the whole outfit. Yeah.
Okay, guys, the next thing is the Titanic I'm King of the World career moment. Was an actor in this movie at the top of their career, or was it anything else from the movie? Trending, newsworthy, tabloid popular when this movie was released. And I've got some mentions here. Of course, of all, you could talk about Sam Firstenberg. He's on a roll here. He's doing all these canon films. Michael Dudikoff is now making a name for himself. Steve James, definitely. But is it really ninja films? Ninja films are rolling. And ninjas in general, I think, are winning, in my personal opinion. Kyle, what is it? Kyle?
Yeah, we are at the height of the 80s ninja revolution right now. Yeah. And so it's ninjas. I think it's a hindsight King of the Mountain. It's Dudikoff could get this too for the American Ninja franchise. Steve James, I still think for him right now, for me, it's getting Delta Force and being there with Chuck Norris. That's at that time was huge.
That's a good point. Yeah. Lacey, what about you? What's King of the World moment here?
I think if we put the Renaissance aside, that I would say probably when you say tabloid kind of issues is that Mike Stone and Priscilla Presley probably right about then were still, that he was probably the most tabloided of all the actors in the second.
Was that happening during 85 or was that happening in the 70s? Because the reason why I'm asking. The reason I'm asking is because, hold on, Elvis died in 77. So that
was, but that's still probably something anytime he was cast in anything or anytime he, how they always.
I have no memory of that. So that's news to me. Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
Maybe.
I know apartheid was coming up in a big deal as well, because that's the reason why Dudikoff did not return for 3, because they were filming in South Africa. He was against apartheid, and also he didn't want to be typecasted, but that, of course, did happen. So there we go. Do you guys have a Nuke It from Orbit hot take on any of these films?
I don't know if it's a Nuke It from Orbit, but I do have a hot take.
What's that?
I think when you look at the American Ninja films, I think they are more of a staple in American movie culture than people give them credit for. Because I think with the Ninja, you look at that time, what they represent from canon films, what they represent for the Ninja popularity. And in truth, I think even the average person, especially if they lived at it during the 80s, they know the name Michael Dudikoff. Even if they've never seen the American Ninja films, they know the name Michael Dudikoff. And I think these, especially the first 2, are just a much more staple in American culture of the 80s than anybody really would realize until they think about it for a minute.
Lacey, you got a hot take?
I got a hot take. I love the nickname Shmooly. And I feel like that's going to be something that I call people from now on when I like them. I'm going to be like, oh, Shmooly.
Oh, I can't wait till that happens for us.
It's I don't know. I don't know if that's his middle name and it's just shortened or if that's just a nickname, but I love it. And I think that, like when people in the documentaries call him Shmooly, you can see genuine like love and adoration for this person. And I just think that that's a sweet thing to call somebody now.
My hot take is this. I'm holding up the Blu-rays of the American Ninja right here. Great image, great look, great. But in my opinion, the real American Ninja is Steve James. I think Steve James steals these films. He's the better martial arts. He's the better actor. And I come away with missing Steve James every time I watch these. He saved these films, I think, from being lost in oblivion. Steve James makes these films. So we don't have Steve James in these first two films. They are what they are. That's my hot take.
I think that's fair. I think what's interesting, and I just want to add on to that just a second. I really think when you watch these two films, and I watched them back to back last night.
Me too.
You watch American Ninja 1 with Steve James in it. You don't start seeing his full energy until about 3/4 of the way through the film.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. But American Ninja 2, that's his movie. That he takes control of that movie. He from the minute when they're going, I'm gonna hate this place. I'm gonna hate this place. They show the beach scenes, and he's like, I'm really gonna like this place. It's his movie.
It is
more so, and I want to credit him too because he could have been a royal ass. Like, you're making me work with this kid who doesn't know anything, and he took Michael Dudikoff under his wing and embraced him like a brother. And those two are
they did Avenging Force together. They did Avenging Force together too, and they were friends. So yeah. Okay, the last thing I want to ask you, always talk about what happens next day, sequel, all that kind of stuff. Well, we know we had sequels here, guys. We had American Ninja 1 and 2, of course. We had American Ninja 3 Blood Hunt. That's where Steve James comes into the fold again, where he's now left the army. He does mention Joe. Joe is still in the army, so they didn't write him off dead. And he meets Bradley, who is David Bradley, who's a fellow martial artist. And of course, they come across ninjas. American Ninja 4 Annihilation, that brings back Michael Dudikoff because the producers wanted him back, and they said yeah. And David Bradley and Michael Dudikoff are in this film together. And then we have American Ninja 5. Kind of goes off the rails a little bit. Bradley's back, and we have Miyagi in it.
Oh, Pat Morita.
Yes. And what's interesting, too, by the way, guys, is then David Bradley does American Samurai, also directed by Sam Firstenberg right there, as I mentioned earlier with Mark Dacascos. They're what they are. There's nothing like American Ninja 1 and 2 back to back. Lacey.
I just want to say that I looked it up, and Sam Firstenberg's actual born name is Shmulik Firstenberg, which is where Shmooly came from. And I'm still going to use it as a nickname for people who I like.
What's my name?
Shmooly.
Yay! Okay, I got to ask you guys. Final thoughts. We got to wrap this up here, guys. American Ninja. We've talked about what they mean to us and everyone. We've covered that, but I got to ask the big question. Which one do you like better, American Ninja or American Ninja 2?
It's an interesting question because I honestly think American Ninja 2 is the more fun film, just for fun factor. Because Wild Bill, Dudikoff's much more energetic. But I actually think American Ninja 1 might have the better fight sequences.
So that one's your favorite?
I think so. All
right, Lacey, what about you?
Well, it's a toss-up because Charlie's hilarious in the first one, and then the second one has red shorts. So,
what Lacey's saying is she's going to work some clone magic and amalgamate the two so she can have everything.
I like the first. You know what? I like the first one just because of that. I'm bringing this bitch uptown or whatever. That was just the funniest, most random 1980s line ever, and it's kind of perfect.
Two's my favorite because I saw it first, so obviously I have that there. But also too, I just feel like Dudikoff and James really worked well, and they got each other's back, and it was funnier. And Wild Bill, come on, Wild freaking Bill. Man, just so good, so funny. And I got to tell you, impressed with the lower budget and still a decent film. I got to give it to the to Canon and those producers. So anyway, guys, this has been Couch Potato Theater. We've been having a lot of fun discussing American Ninja and American Ninja 2. We are celebrating Canon, 1980s Canon film retrospective. We have American Ninja 1 and 2 done now. We will be, of course, covering Stallone, Cobra, Bloodsport, Firewalker, Masters of the Universe, and Invasion USA. We are here on the Fandom Podcast Network. Give us a shout out there with our QR code. We're also now on Blue Sky at FanPod Network, also X on FanPod Network, also on Instagram at Fandom Podcast Network. Please check us out. Also Facebook as well. And please also give us a shout out on TeePublic. We got some great shirts on there. I'm wearing my Couch Potato Theater t-shirt. But Kyle, how can we find you?
Well, if you use the proper ninja magic, no, but in all seriousness, you can find me on Twitter at or X or whatever you want to call it. You can find me at @KyleW. You can also find me at @KyleW on Blue Sky. Of course, you can find me all over Facebook with the Fandom Podcast Network pages, and you can find me at @KyleFandom on Instagram and Threads, and you also might find me in Throwing Star in the Head.
Lacey, you're on Letterboxd, right?
Yes, I'm on Letterboxd and Discord. You can find me in person at DragonCon. I volunteer with the military sci-fi track, so come by and say hi.
Lacey Pants is your handle on Discord and on
Lacey Pants, Lacey with 2 E's.
Make sure you find her at DragonCon if you're going.
Yeah. Here on the fun podcasts.
Awesome. Yeah, Fandom Podcast Network, and of course our co-host on Time Warp. So yeah, check those out. We are discussing the year of 1990. So my name is Kevin. You can find me on all of the socials at Spartan_Phoenix, including Blue Sky at Spartan Phoenix. Ninja Pants, Lacey, thank you so much. And thank you for all of the extra work you put into the commentaries. Appreciate you. Kyle, as always, my ninja brother from another mother. Thank you very, very much. You guys have been watching and listening to Couch Potato Theater, American Ninja 1 and 2, The Confrontation, celebrating 1980s Canon film retrospective. Stay tuned for more. Appreciate you. Check out the Fandom Podcast Network for more Couch Potato Theater. Until next time, we will see you on the couch. See you guys.